This story begins with a picture of Tehran at night, with a single light in a guest house blinking out. It's midnight in Tehran. The city hums, completely unaware that a single light is about to blink out, and with it, a line of power that has stretched for decades across the Middle East. This is a story of secrecy and spectacle, of spies and sovereign shame. It's about a man who became a symbol and a killing that reverberated across world capitals. Tonight, we follow the trail. Who Ismail Haniyeh was, what happened in Tehran, and why his death matters far beyond the room where it happened. Archival footage of Haniyeh, maps showing his travels. Ismail Haniyeh was not an unknown figure. He was a founder-era leader of Hamas, a Palestinian figure who rose from the politics of Gaza to become the international face of his movement. For years, Haniyeh shuttled between diplomatic sanctuaries, Doha, Beirut, Tehran, while the conflict he represented burned back home. As the head of Hamas's political bureau since 2017, he occupied the fraught space between diplomacy and militancy. His life was an index of the region's fractures, exile and influence, grief and strategy. By late July 2024, Haniyeh was in Tehran as a guest at the inauguration of Iran's new president, a high-profile presence in a city that prided itself on hosting the so-called axis of resistance. For many in Tehran, he was an honored guest. For others, he was a target. Tone tightens, visuals shift to CCTV-style blurs, Iranian flags. Shortly after 2 a.m. on July 31st, an explosion ripped through a guest house run by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, where Haniyeh was staying. He and his personal aide were killed. The announcement was immediate and shocking. A senior political figure assassinated on Iranian soil. It was a violation of the most basic tenets of sovereignty. Iran's Revolutionary Guards publicly blamed an external actor. Hamas called it a Zionist raid. Israel offered no public admission. The world watched a carefully choreographed, shocking silence. But what killed him? The accounts diverged. Iran's Revolutionary Guards described a short-range projectile, a small but powerful strike that caused a strong blast. However, other investigative reports, including one from a prominent U.S. newspaper, concluded the cause was a sophisticated explosive device, allegedly smuggled into the guest house months earlier and detonated remotely. Different forensic pictures, different security narratives, but the same outcome. Haniyeh was dead, Iran was embarrassed, and the questions were multiplying. We have to be careful here. These remain competing claims, produced in the fog that always surrounds covert operations. Visuals of security sweeps, funeral processions, world leaders. Iran responded with fury. There were security sweeps, arrests of guest house staff, and a public investigation that put Tehran's own intelligence apparatus on trial in the court of public opinion. Officials said multiple people were detained, a humiliating breach, if true, of the IRGC's own security protections. Diplomatically, Iran promised harsh punishment in due time. Funerals spread across the region, and calls for revenge echoed from capitals as far away as Ankara and Jakarta. Israel's reaction was muted but consequential. No official claim, tight denials, and a strategic silence that, in itself, functions as a political message. In the world of counterintelligence and geopolitics, silence can be its own powerful statement. Analytical tone, visuals of news headlines from different sources. Reliable outlets, like Reuters, the BBC, and Al Jazeera, all converged on the core facts: the date, the place, the victim, and the political context. But on the method, they split. Iran's official line pointed to an external strike, a projectile launched from outside the compound. Investigative reporting pointed to a planted, remote-detonated explosive device. Independent journalists and analysts cautioned that open-source evidence is extremely limited and that intelligence services often leak or sculpt narratives to protect their methods or to communicate deterrence. We won't invent details the sources don't support. Instead, we can read these competing accounts as part of the operation's political architecture, where each version serves a different audience and a different strategic purpose. Voice deepens, visuals shift to archival Mossad images, maps of past operations. To understand what happened in Tehran, we have to place it in a longer story: the modern practice of state-directed targeted killings. For a state like Israel, this is an old tool, from operations in the 1970s to the shadow campaigns of the 21st century. Scholars like Ronan Bergman have traced a persistent logic. Decapitating the leadership can disrupt violent groups, but it also risks blowback, escalation, and serious moral and legal controversy. These operations can deliver short-term tactical gains, but often carry long-term strategic costs. Assassination is not a magic bullet, it's a scalpel that cuts both ways. In academic debates, some argue targeted killings degrade an organization's capabilities and deter others. Others argue they galvanize movements, remove any avenues for negotiation, and create powerful martyrdom narratives that fuel recruitment. Haniyeh's killing sits right at the intersection of both arguments: a tactical decapitation with profoundly unpredictable strategic consequences, visuals of strategic maps, animations of networks between Tehran, Gaza, and Beirut. So why Tehran? Why now? The answer is geopolitical. Iran has long been a lifeline to proxy groups across the region. Striking a visiting leader on its soil sends a seismic signal. Even sanctuary can be penetrated. That fundamentally changes the dynamics of deterrence. For Tehran, the assassination was both a humiliation and a rallying cry. For Israel, if it was Israel, it was a message of reach and resolve. And for the international community, it presented a terrifying prospect: state-on-state secret war conducted in the shadows of capital cities. Somber tone, visuals of international law books, human rights protests. Beyond strategy, there's the moral and legal friction. International law is murky on cross-border targeted killings, especially when the target is a political leader of a non-state actor, and the attack occurs in a third country. Critics call such acts extrajudicial killings and violations of sovereignty. Advocates argue they are a necessary form of self-defense against violent actors. The Haniyeh case reopened these debates, with diplomats demanding answers, human rights groups calling for investigation, and legal scholars warning of the precedent set when states bypass transparent accountability. Visuals of empty guesthouse rooms, closed courtroom doors. A year on, some questions remain stubbornly unresolved. Who exactly planned and executed the operation? How was access achieved? Were Iranian security services complicit, or were they simply outmaneuvered? Will Iran retaliate overtly, or continue the shadow tit-for-tat that has characterized its response strategies? The public record gives us plausible narratives and investigative leads, but very little incontrovertible proof. In the absence of a full, transparent inquiry, the event's political meaning often competes with, and sometimes overwhelms, its forensic truth. Assassinations like this reshape incentives. States face harder choices: escalate and risk open war, retaliate covertly and risk eroding international norms, or seek containment through alliances and deterrence. For the people of Gaza, Tehran, and Jerusalem, the calculus is human, not strategic. Loss begets loss. For policymakers and citizens worldwide, Haniyeh's death is a warning about the fragility of international order in an era of precision secrecy. Music swells, narrator tone becomes softer. In the end, this is a human story. A leader, a bodyguard, an empty chair at a table of power. The ripples of one night in Tehran moved across seas and screens, a reminder that in this new age of shadow war, no one, not even the powerful, can assume that sanctuary is absolute. We've laid out the facts as they've been reported, the scholarly lenses that help make sense of them, and the unanswered questions that keep investigators awake at night. History will be the judge, but today we are left with the uneasy truth that the most strategic acts are often the most costly. If you found this deep dive useful, please give us a like and share this video with someone who loves history and geopolitics. Don't forget to subscribe for more documentary investigations and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thank you for watching. If you'd like sources, notes, and a reading list from the literature I mentioned, check the description below. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and see you next time.